and how plant-based cannabinoids interact with that and help us with different healthcare concerns and things that we have. My background, I'm fascinated by plant medicine, not just cannabis, but cannabis happens to be one of the most versatile plants that we have in our arsenal, so to speak. And so we do use it a lot, and we do want to learn more about its different effects and what conditions it can help people with. So another part of my personal focus is in genetics, and that's both our own individual genetics and the plant's genetics, and more specifically how they interact on a pharmacological level. That's a study known as pharmacogenetics, and it's probably really boring and dense for most people, but I find it fascinating. And what that tells us is that each of us individually has genetic markers that determine how our bodies receive compounds pharmacologically. This is the phenomenon that we know as side effects from medications. Almost all medications have 7 to 10% incidence in side effects across widespread populations. And often when we see those unwanted occurrences, if we reduce the dose drastically to about 10% of usual recommended dosing, often the medications will work very well. And so by understanding these pharmacological interactions, we can do great things for our health. Cannabis is unique in that it's an adjustant. It doesn't regulate things in only one way. It affects many systems in our body, from our breathing to our permeability of our bowels to regulating our neurological system. And the way it does those things is by affecting a part of our body known as the endocannabinoid system. Dr. Raphael Mechoulam from Israel was the first one to do a lot of great things in the cannabis world. He identified the endocannabinoid system. He synthesized the THC and CBD molecules, and he's who I look to as the person on the cutting edge in this field. So much of my model and how I think about things comes from him. The endocannabinoid system is a set of neuromodulatory lipids and their receptors. So neuromodulatory lipids means a fat-soluble compound that happens to modulate our neurological system, or the system that provides signaling for all of our body's coordination. It's the communication for the computer, so to speak. And it does that in a number of different mechanisms, and almost all of those mechanisms can be either turned on or off, so to speak, that is upregulated or downregulated with cannabis. So that's what accounts for the individual variation in response to different strains and different methods of use, and that's why we have to do so much trial and error to find the right path for each individual. The receptors that are part of the cannabinoid system have natural compounds that are occurring in our body, and we talk a lot about kids not needing cannabis. I agree with that wholeheartedly, although there are some very ill children that do need support of their endocannabinoid system, and I've had the privilege of treating about a dozen children here locally over the last couple of years, and it's been quite an experience. My opinion is that most children, healthy children, have plenty of cannabinoids, and they're finding their receptors and they're interacting with their bodies the way that they're supposed to. But as we age, like many processes, including the permeability of our guts and how different systems interact with each other, we have less endocannabinoids. We have less naturally occurring cannabinoids, and so supplementing them becomes the way to keep yourself healthy. It's a big component because for 80 years they've been taken out of our population's diets and lives due to prohibition. And so my opinion, and a number of my colleagues' opinion, is that this has caused a great deal of our health dysfunction, from the increased incidence of cancer and diabetes and high blood pressure in our populations, to neurological disorders like epilepsy, movement disorders, Crohn's, and many of the GI disorders that are widespread also seem to be well controlled by reintroducing cannabinoids to an individual's diet or lives. What happens when a cannabinoid, whether it's natural or plant-based, finds its receptor is it begins a cascade of messaging and of cellular response. Our bodies are highly complex machines that have many, many membranes and pathways that are being used to regulate. It's how our bodies tell the brain, hey, there's something going on here and I need you to pay attention to this area of my body and help me fix this. And in the organ systems, away from the brain and the central nervous system, when an organ is dysfunctional, it has a higher number of cannabinoid receptors that are put there by the body in its healing process, trying to find these compounds to come and begin more of that, trigger more process and balance the process out and make it work more efficiently. So that's not the most important thing. I really like that, and I like understanding the why of how that works and how it happens on a chemical and microscopic level. But we're here now and we're dealing with humans and they're ill and they need help, and we want to do that. And so what I rely on is I rely on a chemical test of each plant and product that we have in the store to tell me exactly what's in there chemically based on the cannabinoids, which we heard there are 66, and there may be more than that. The 66 is probably the ones that have well understood metabolic efficacy. So I look at these like a profile or a fingerprint, and the plants are my friends, and I know one from the other, and it's not just a big bag of green leafy material to me. I see the nuances and the differences, and then we go even further and we get the chemotype or the chemical composition. And then through experience and through trial and error, we're able to begin to define what people should use for different conditions and what people are going to be comfortable with for a psychoactive effect. Do you want no psychoactive effect? Do you want a little bit? Do you want a lot because that's your thing? We're starting to understand how to give each person what they need and what they want. The reason that cannabis has a psychoactive effect when it's THC rich is because of a colander known as our blood-brain barrier. And certain molecules are small enough and of the right composition to cross that blood-brain barrier and affect our brains. But the way cannabis does that, it doesn't affect our central nervous system at its core. It's very peripheral in our brain, and it affects the things that are to do with creativity and memory. That's why people talk about memory loss associated with cannabis. To me, it's not necessarily memory loss. Maybe you don't have to remember everything that ever happened to you. Maybe some of the things that are short-term that happened throughout the day, it's okay to forget them to make room for other things that are in your brain. But when we have long-term issues like PTSD and things that are bad memories that are causing us difficulty in our day-to-day lives, why is forgetting those such a bad thing? Why is using the cannabis to reprogram our brains and the part of it that controls memory a bad thing? I don't think it is at all. I think it's very effective and that it works great. Similar to our guts. Our guts are our vehicle for all of our nutrition to get into our bodies and to rejuvenate our cells and to keep us healthy and alive. And so if the colander that's your guts isn't working well and it's not absorbing all the different things that Reverend Mike was talking about, that's why he's so focused on availability, bioavailability, and you need a certain level of it, but you've got to take it with the black pepper, and you need different things in conjunction with each other. There's a perfect balance where your body would just be happy and none of this biological process would would happen is the theory. You're never going to get there, but the idea is to get as close as possible to homeostasis or balance in and among all of your body systems. And we can't do it without cannabinoids. It's just not going to happen. It's just not going to be optimum and function at its best. And so, you know, let us tailor a treatment to you, let us help you, let us talk with you about what the right things are for you. Reverend Mike is great at using other herbs and plant materials. I study